These are the things we learned in American history.
America's system of government directly after the Revolutionary War. One house, each state had one vote. No federal tax. States can coin money. States act independently. No executive or judicial branches. That is the Articles of Confederation.
The Constitution. There are two houses, Senate and the House of Reps. Majority of each house approves laws. Executive branch carries out laws. Judicial branch interprets laws. Federal government taxes and coins money and regulates trade.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah! Shays' Rebellion was when farmers started to get upset about their farms getting foreclosed. So they had a rebellion. Shays' Rebellion. The Land Ordinance of 1785 to 1787. It was the way the government made procedures for the settlement and political incorporation of the Ohio River Valley.
James Madison, Daddy of the Constitution. The fourth president was a Democratic Republican with T.J. Word.
This is the House of Representatives. House that supports bigger states. Each state's number of representatives is based on its population. Oh yeah. The Senate is the House that supports the smaller states, 'cause each state gets 2 senators, regardless of its population. 3/5 compromise. The South wanted to count slaves in their population towards the number of House representatives. So 3/5 of the slave population ended up being counted.
Federalist Papers, written to support the Constitution. Hamilton wrote the other 51.
Anti-federalists! Those who do not support the Constitution. The Bill of Rights was when 10 amendments were added to the Constitution to make people want to ratify it. Woo.
George Washington, tall,
First president.
general in the Revolutionary War,
Established executive duty as seeing that the laws of Congress are faithfully carried out. Step down after 2 terms.
John Adams, President number 2, dealt with the XYZ affair, cut off trade with Britain, did a bad job, silenced opposition with the Alien and Sedition Acts. Yeah.
Federal departments created by Congress, including state, treasury, and war. Oh yeah. The Secretary of the State was the guy in charge of State Department, and he's also responsible for foreign affairs. The Secretary of Treasury, the person who helps the president with economics. This person also makes an economic and government financial policy perspective to any problems that affect the government.
Secretary of War, a position in the President's cabinet that was abolished after World War II.
The National Bank, proposed by Mr. Ham to grant loans, deposit federal funds, and have a monopoly over government banking. It was to be funded by taxes on alcohol and tariffs on imports. Thomas Jefferson, President number 3, wrote the Declaration of Independence, Democratic Republican, who supported strict interpretation and gave the states rights to nullify acts. What's that word? Unconstitutional. Whiskey rebellion. People would tax on the whiskey, death on the bank. And they got mad and tried to say no taxation without representation. So George Washington himself went and put down the rebellion. Election of 1796. Adams was elected the second president, with Jefferson as his vice president.
Alien and Sedition Acts. Acts passed by Adams. aimed at Democratic Republicans, stating that the president can deport dangerous aliens and making it a crime to punish false, scandalous, and malicious writing against government or its officials. Word.
Election of 1800. Aaron Burr and Jefferson tied at first, so the election moved to the House of Representatives. Hamilton convinced the Federalists to support T. Jeffs, and that's how he won.
Chief Justice John Marshall established the Supreme Court responsibilities of judicial review. Judicial review. The Supreme Court dealing if laws or acts of government are unconstitutional.
America was gonna buy New Orleans and Florida from France, but under France offered the whole giant Louisiana territory for $50 million, and Jefferson took it, doubling the size of the United States of America. That is what we call the Louisiana Purchase.
Embargo bill.
Boom, boom.
Jefferson made a bill
Boom, boom.
that America couldn't trade
Boom, boom.
with France and Britain, which hurt America a lot more than France and Britain.
Yeah. 1808 election. Madison is elected as the 4th president.
Assimilation. When a culture adopts some things from another culture and mixes it together, a mix of different cultures.
1795, Treaty of Greenville, a treaty created between the Indians and the settlers on what to do about land. The treaty was an agreement that the Native Americans can move to a reservation, set out for them with some money and some goods.
Tecumseh was the Indian Shawnee chief who died in the Battle of Tippecanoe. He sided with the British during the War of 1812. Word.
Battle of Tippecanoe, a battle that took place at Prophetstown between William Henry Harrison and the Shawnee Indians, led by Tecumseh. The battle ended in a draw and ended with the town burned. The battle was a protest against the Treaty of Fort Wayne. William Henry Harrison attacks Indian Prophetstown and burns it in the Battle of Tippecanoe. President number 9 dies 1 month after taking office.
Treaty of Fort Wayne, a treaty signed by a few Indians that signed away a lot of their land in Indiana to America. Received protest from other Indians because the majority did not agree to it.
Henry Clay of Kentucky, Speaker of the House in 1812, and a war for encouraging the war, enables the Missouri Compromise. 8 years later, ran for president in 1832 and lost to Jackson, ran in 1844 and lost to James K. Polk.
Battle of New Orleans, fought after the treaty had been signed to the end of the War of 1812. British attacked New Orleans, and Jackson, he defended.
A Star-Spangled Banner, a poem written by Francis Scott Key, who was taken hostage at the time. It is currently the national anthem in the USA, and the first verse is sung to a British drinking song. Andrew
Jackson,
the
7th
president
and
a
member
of
the
Democratic
Republican
Party
he
was for
for
the
removal
of
the
Native
Americans
to
Oklahoma.
he
Also
chose
the
parties
mascot
because
of
a
nickname.
yay.
The Treaty of Ghent, the treaty that ended the War of 1812. This treaty was signed before the Battle of New Orleans, and was that what ended impressment? The Treaty of Ghent also established status quo antebellum.
Meriwether Lewis, Jefferson's personal secretary, sent by Jefferson to explore the new Louisiana territory.
Sacagawea, a Native American woman who was married to a French fur trapper.
Boom!
His second wife, she was bilingual and a part of the Shoshone tribe. She heavily assisted Lewis and Clark on their journey and gave birth in the process. That's what we
Wicka Shoshone, the Native American tribe that Sacagawea was a part of or from. The Shoshone had the three main groups, the Eastern, the Western, and the Northern.
Negotiations for Florida.
Yeah.
In 1817, Jackson held an army on the border to deal with the Seminoles and siege Spanish forces St. Mark and Pensacola.
The Onis Treaty, 1819 treaty with Spain to give Florida to the U.S.
The Erie Canal, a waterway that connects the Great Lakes and the Atlantic Ocean, as well as New York to New Orleans. The waterway was handmade and provides a good way of transportation and trading opportunities. The Missouri Compromise, made possible by Henry Clay. It was a deal which added Missouri to the Union as a slave state, added Maine as a free one, and declared all Western territories being added as states would be divided between slave and free on the 3630 north latitude line.
The Jacksonian era. Jackson was the people's president, remover of Indians, opponent of banks, slave owner, and did what he wanted to do.
Monroe Doctrine, established by John Quincy Adams under President number 5 James Monroe, stating that old and new world should be separated. U.S. has sole control over the Western Hemisphere and stays out of European affairs.
Indian Removal Act by American government to remove Native tribes from their ancestral lands in the Southeast and put them in Oklahoma.
The nullification crisis of South Carolina claimed to have the right to nullify acts of the U.S. government, but they didn't like John C. Calhoun, who supported them, which made Jackson hate him.
Niccolo versus Maryland. It's a court case in the bank war that ruled that the federal government can create a bank. And the state that a federal bank cannot tax that bank.
It was the election of 1832. Andrew Jackson won the presidency against Henry Clay. The Whig Party formed to oppose King Andrew I.
Boom! Van Buren, he was the successor of Andrew Jackson and inherited all of the economic problems set up by Andrew Jackson. His nickname became Van Ruin.
John Tyler was a Democrat
who vetoed bank and internal improvement bills. His cabinet resigned in response.
Santa Anna, he was the president of Mexico when Texas was fighting for freedom. He was infamous for the Battle of the Alamo, and he was defeated at the Battle of San Jacinto.
This is the Oregon Trail, the trail that started in Independence, Missouri. The people used to head west to Oregon Territory and sometimes California. The trail is very dangerous because of Native Indian attacks, robbers, very little medical help, mountainous terrain, and other terrible conditions.
Broad versus strict interpretation of Constitution. Those who supported strict interpretation would one day become today's Democrats. They held the belief that the U.S. government should only do things that were directly in the Constitution, and those who supported broad interpretation believed the Constitution could stretch. The XYZ affair happened early in Adams' presidency. 3 French agents demanded bribes in order to meet with Americans and make diplomatic negotiations, which offended America, and the negotiations never happened. Marbury versus Madison, 1803. Madison wouldn't give Marbury his federal appointment paperwork. The court decided in judicial review that was unconstitutional.
The War of 1812 started because America wanted freedom on the seas, Britain off its frontier, and impressment to stop.
And impressment was when U.S. soldiers were forced into the British Navy.
Jay's Treaty.
This treaty was ratified in 1795 and maintained peace and U.S. neutrality with Great Britain. This treaty was supposed to send people out of forts set up for trade. Word.
Reservations, land or an area that is set aside for the purpose of someone else. a place separate from the government, and that is untouched and is usually used for Native Americans.
The prophet. He was Tecumseh's brother, a religious and political leader for the Shawnee Native American tribe. He fought alongside his elder brother in the Battle of Tippecanoe, Prophetstown, Indiana. Tenskwata was called the Prophet and was against assimilation. Prophetstown was to be a haven for traditionalism and cultural preservation. Word.
John Calhoun of South Carolina. House wore hawk for the War of 1812. He and Clay got Madison to support the war by first supported the nullification rights of South Carolina as Jackson VP, which questioned the executive sovereignty and made Jackson hate him. Word.
Francis Scott Key, a young lawyer who was taken hostage during the Battle of New Orleans. While he was in custody, he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. He has a wife and 11 children, 6 boys and 5 girls.
William Clark, he was Lewis's chosen travel buddy who helped lead the expedition.
The Lewis and Clark journey, a mission to explore the Louisiana Territory, to find river route through the Pacific, establish contact with the Indians, and got information on resources.
Zebulon Pike, explorer who went up the Mississippi River to find its source, went up the Arkansas River to the Rockies in Colorado to what is now called Pikes Peak.
Robert Fulton Steamboat. Robert Fulton made the first successful steamboat journey in 1807. And steamboats became common mode of transportation for goods and passengers along canals and rivers.
The Cherokee v. Georgia. The legal case when the Cherokee sued the state of Georgia for taking their land, and the Supreme Court ruled in Cherokee's favor. But President Jackson would not enforce the decision.
The Trail of Tears, the route the Cherokee Indians were forced to walk on from their land in Georgia to Oklahoma. 25% of them died.
Depression of 1837. Jackson vetoed the bank recharter because he hated the bank, and he hated Henry Clay. Cause of depression, when the bank shut down, he caused a depression when the bank shut down.
Manifest destiny, the will of God, to move west and to civilize the whole continent.